The robbery started at 2:45. Late night, empty station, single attendant. Frank was working the register when a masked gunman entered. "Give me the money, old man." He was 74, alone. Police would take 20 minutes to arrive. But Frank wasn't afraid, because 35 years ago, he'd faced much more dangerous situations. In the Army, the Shell station on Highway 9 had stood in the same spot since 1975. Small roadside gas station, 4 pumps, convenience store, 24-hour operation. Frank Turner had been working here for 40 years. Longest tenured employee, most reliable night shift worker. Frank was 74 years old, stooped shoulders, slow gait, silver white hair under his shell cap. Every night he came at 10 p.m., finished his shift at 6 a.m. Customers loved Frank, always polite, helpful, never complained. "Frank's been here longer than anyone remembers," said day manager Sarah. "Customers trust him. Never had a single problem in 40 years. Night shift was challenging. Drunk drivers, stranded travelers, occasional troublemakers. Frank handled everything with patience and kindness. Police knew Frank. Truckers respected him. Locals considered him family. "How's your granddaughter's college, Frank?" "Need directions to the interstate, sir?" "Coffee's fresh. Just made a new pot." Frank was efficient, but never hurried. Security cameras, panic button, basic safety protocols. But mostly, Frank relied on experience and people skills. The station was a small business, but a community landmark. Travelers stopping for gas, locals buying groceries, truckers taking breaks. Frank knew the regulars, helped strangers, maintained order peacefully. "Frank makes everyone feel welcome," said regular customer Mrs. Davis. "That station's safe because Frank's there." In Frank's locker, behind his uniform jacket, was an old photo. Army Rangers, Vietnam War, young soldier with fierce eyes. Nobody had asked about that photo in 40 years. Frank was quiet about his military service. He didn't seem like a combat veteran, too gentle, too peaceful. But looks could be deceiving. Wednesday night, 2:30 a.m. Frank was following his usual night routine. Register reconciliation, inventory check, coffee preparation for early morning customers. The station was mostly empty. Occasional traveler, few night shift workers heading home. Quiet stretch of highway, minimal traffic, peaceful atmosphere. Frank was restocking shelves when the last customer left. Now alone in the station, just Frank, fluorescent lights, security cameras recording silently. 2:40 a.m., Frank returned to the counter, counting the day's receipts. Normal end-of-shift duties, nothing unusual. Radio playing, soft country music, coffee pot warming, everything routine. 2:45 a.m., the door chime rang. Frank looked up, saw a figure entering. Tall man, dark hoodie pulled up, hands in pockets, face partially obscured. "Evening," Frank said politely. "What can I help you with?" The man approached the counter without responding. Something in his movement made Frank alert. Aggressive posture, nervous energy, avoiding eye contact. "Sir, store's open all night. Take your time." The man reached the counter, pulled out a gun. Small pistol, probably .38, barrel pointed directly at Frank. "Give me all the money, old man." "Empty the register." "Now." Frank's hands slowly raised, but his mind instantly shifted. 40 years of peaceful gas station work evaporated. Training from 1968 Vietnam emerged. Threat assessment, single gunman, nervous amateur, poor weapon discipline, escape routes available, innocent bystanders absent. "Easy, son," Frank said calmly. "I'll give you what you want." Frank's voice carried authority that surprised the gunman. Not a scared old man, but a controlled professional. "Hurry up! Open the register!" Frank moved slowly toward the cash register, hands visible, non-threatening posture. But his mind was calculating. Distance to weapon, gunman's positioning, tactical options. "Son, register's got maybe $200. Not worth getting hurt over." "Shut up and give me the money." Frank opened the register, revealing modest cash supply. Night shift deposits meant minimal money available. "This is all there is," Frank said, showing the contents. The gunman leaned forward to see the register, weapon slightly lowered. Critical mistake, Frank struck. 35 years of suppressed training exploded in 3 seconds. Frank's left hand swept up, deflecting the gun barrel away from his body. His right hand shot forward, striking the gunman's wrist, forcing him to drop the weapon. Simultaneous leg sweep sent the attacker crashing into the counter. The gun clattered across the floor, 20 feet away. The gunman was on the ground, winded, shocked. "Stay down," Frank commanded with a voice that hadn't been heard since Vietnam. The gunman tried to rise. Frank applied pressure point control, technique learned in Ranger training for prisoner restraint. Not harmful, but absolutely immobilizing. "Son, I was disarming people before you were born." Frank retrieved the weapon, checked the safety, secured it professionally. Then activated the panic button, called 911. "This is Frank Turner, Shell Station Highway 9. Armed robbery attempt. Suspect in custody. No injuries." "Sir, did you say suspect in custody?" "Affirmative. Situation controlled." The gunman stared at Frank in disbelief. The elderly gas station attendant had just executed a perfect disarmament, like a trained soldier. Who are you?" Frank looked down at the young man. Probably early 20s, desperate, not a criminal mastermind. "Frank Turner. Work here 40 years. But how did you—" "Son, what's your name?" "Marcus. Marcus Johnson." "Marcus, you hurt? Need medical attention?" Even showing concern for the person who'd just threatened him. I'm okay. But how did you do that?" Frank helped Marcus to a sitting position, checked for injuries. "Military training, long time ago." "Military?" "Army Rangers, Vietnam War." Marcus's eyes widened. "Army Rangers, among the most elite infantry units. Specialized in direct action, raids, reconnaissance." "You're really an Army Ranger?" "Was. Now I pump gas and make coffee." Police sirens were approaching. Frank maintained control of the situation, kept Marcus calm, prepared for the official response. "Marcus, you got family?" "Yes, sir. Mom and little sister." "They know you're here?" Marcus shook his head, ashamed. "Good. Police are coming now. You tell the truth. Take responsibility. Maybe the judge shows mercy." Frank was treating a potential criminal with dignity, compassion. Ranger training included understanding of human nature. Police arrived 6 minutes later. Found the situation completely controlled. Suspect restrained, weapon secured, elderly attendant giving first aid. "Mr. Turner?" Sergeant Williams approached carefully. "You called in the robbery?" "Yes, sir." "Young man here attempted armed robbery. I disarmed him safely." Sergeant Williams looked at the scene. 74-year-old gas station worker, armed suspect, sitting calmly, no violence evident. "Sir, how exactly did you disarm the gunman?" Frank was uncomfortable with the attention. "Military training." "What branch?" "Army." "What unit?" Frank hesitated. "Rangers." Sergeant Williams' expression changed. "Army Rangers, legendary reputation, elite warriors." "Rangers? What years?" 1967 to 1970, Vietnam. Officer Martinez, a younger policeman, approached Marcus. "You okay, son? Hurt anywhere?" Marcus looked confused. He could have killed me, but he was gentle. Asked if I needed help. Officer Martinez looked at Frank with new respect. "Sir, what was your rank?" "Staff Sergeant, 75th Ranger Regiment." "Holy shit," Martinez whispered. "You're the real deal." A paramedic arrived to check both men for injuries. Frank refused treatment, focused on Marcus's well-being. "Son's not hurt," Frank reported. "Just scared and desperate." The paramedic noticed Frank's forearm, faded tattoo partially visible. Army Ranger tab, words, "Rangers lead the way." "Sir, is that Ranger tab real?" Frank nodded quietly. "My grandfather was 101st Airborne. Says Rangers are the toughest SOBs in the Army. We did our job, that's all." But Marcus was listening to the conversation, processing the information. The man who just defeated him was a legendary soldier, but treating him with kindness. "Mr. Turner," Marcus said quietly, "why didn't you hurt me?" Frank looked at the young man seriously. "Son, Rangers taught me to neutralize threats, not create more problems. You're not the enemy, just a young man making bad choices. By morning, Frank's story was local news. Security camera footage showed the robbery attempt, Frank's lightning-fast disarmament, compassionate aftermath. Gas station attendant stops armed robbery. Vietnam veteran works quietly for 40 years. Army Ranger protects Highway 9 station. Frank tried returning to his normal routine, but customers looked at him differently. "Frank, I had no idea you were a war hero. Thank you for your service. Can you teach my son self-defense?" Frank appreciated the respect, but felt uncomfortable with celebrity. Day manager Sarah called a meeting with Frank. "Frank, corporate's concerned about the publicity. Some people think you should have just given the robber the money. I followed my training. The situation required immediate action. But you're 74 years old. Could have been seriously hurt." Frank looked at Sarah seriously. "Ma'am, age doesn't erase training. That young man threatened this station, our customers, our community. That's not acceptable. Frank, company policy is cooperation with robbers. Company policy doesn't account for Army Rangers." Sarah smiled despite her concern. "Frank, you've been a model employee for 40 years. We're not firing you, just maybe warn us next time you plan on being a superhero." "No plans, ma'am. Just want to work my shift peacefully." But peace was interrupted by an unexpected visitor. A young man in Army uniform, Ranger tab visible. "Mr. Turner?" Frank looked up from inventory. "Yes?" "Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, 75th Ranger Regiment. Heard about your actions. Wanted to pay respects." Rodriguez saluted Frank. "Outstanding work, Ranger." Frank returned the salute, muscle memory immediate. "Thank you, Sergeant. Sir, you represent the finest traditions of the regiment." "Rangers lead the way." "Rangers lead the way," Frank replied automatically. Word spread in the veteran community. Rangers, active and retired, started visiting Frank's gas station, not for gas, for connection with a living legend. Young soldiers, struggling with civilian transition, sought Frank's advice. "Mr. Turner, I just got out. Having trouble finding purpose." Frank would talk during quiet moments, sharing wisdom earned through decades. "Son, purpose doesn't end with discharge. It just changes mission." "But civilian work seems meaningless after Ranger operations." Frank gestured around the gas station. "Every night, I keep this place safe. Travelers, truckers, locals. They depend on the security I provide. Different battlefield, same mission. But you're pumping gas, not leading raids." Frank smiled. "Son, I've been on patrol here 40 years. Know every regular customer, every potential threat, every escape route. This is a reconnaissance mission that never ends." The young Ranger looked thoughtful. "Never considered it that way." "Find your gas station, Ranger. Find a place where your skills serve the community." Marcus Johnson's case went to court. Frank testified on his behalf, describing a desperate young man, not a hardened criminal. "Your Honor, the defendant made a mistake, but showed remorse immediately. With proper support, he can contribute to the community." The judge was impressed by Frank's compassion, sentenced Marcus to community service and counseling instead of prison. Marcus visited Frank after sentencing. "Mr. Turner, why did you help me? I tried to rob you." Frank continued stocking shelves. "Son, everyone deserves a second chance. Rangers taught me to eliminate threats, not eliminate people. I don't understand the difference. The threat was the gun and desperation. The person was a young man needing guidance. I stopped the threat, helped the person." Marcus began volunteering at the station, cleaning, restocking, learning from Frank. Transformation from potential criminal to productive citizen. 6 months later, the American Legion contacted Frank for a special honor. The veteran organization wanted to recognize 40 years of community service following his military career. "Mr. Turner, you exemplify veteran values in civilian life." Frank initially declined. "I just work at a gas station." But fellow Rangers convinced him. "Frank, other veterans need your example." The award ceremony was held at the local VFW Hall. Packed audience, Rangers, customers, community members, fellow veterans. Frank wore a dress uniform borrowed from military surplus. Army dress greens with Ranger tab, Vietnam ribbons, combat infantryman badge. Wasn't planning to speak, Frank began, uncomfortable at the microphone. He looked out at the audience. Veterans seeking direction, customers who'd become family, young soldiers needing mentorship. People ask about the connection between Army Rangers and gas station work. They think it's a strange transition. It's not. Frank paused, gathering his thoughts. In the Army, my job was patrolling dangerous territory, protecting fellow soldiers, maintaining security. Here, my job is patrolling Highway 9, protecting travelers, maintaining a safe haven. He looked at the young veterans in the audience. For Rangers leaving service, your skills translate to the civilian world. Vigilance, protection of others, leadership under pressure. These are needed everywhere. Frank held up the Ranger tab from his uniform. This tab represents a commitment to leading others to safety. That mission doesn't end with retirement. A young veteran asked, "What's your advice for finding purpose after the military?" Frank smiled. Find your patrol route. Find a place where Ranger skills serve others. Might be security, might be teaching, might be pumping gas. The mission is the same. Rangers lead the way. 2 years later, Frank still worked the night shift at the Shell station. Now, 76, slower movement, but the same vigilant watch. The station had evolved into an unofficial veteran meeting place. Rangers, active and retired, stopped for coffee and conversation. Military families sought Frank's guidance. Frank's counter displayed a small Ranger flag. Thank you cards from customers, a photo with Marcus Johnson at graduation. The young man had earned his GED, started college. Local police included the station in their regular patrol, checking on our Ranger. Frank appreciated the support but maintained his independent watch. Is Mr. Turner ready to retire yet? The New Day manager asked. Frank looked out at the highway. Steady stream of travelers needing fuel, food, safety. Ma'am, this road needs someone who understands security. These people need someone they can trust. But you've done this for 40 years. Don't you want rest? Frank adjusted his Ranger tab pin on his shirt. Ma'am, Rangers don't retire from protecting people. We just find new ways to lead them to safety. A young Army recruit stopped for gas, noticed Frank's tab. Sir, are you really an Army Ranger? Frank handed him the receipt, refused the tip. Now I'm a gas station attendant who happened to serve. What's it like being a Ranger? Frank looked out at the highway, thinking of decades of service, military and civilian. Son, being a Ranger means taking responsibility for others' safety, no matter where you are or how old you get. That responsibility doesn't have an expiration date. Night deepened, traffic thinned, the station settled into quiet routine. Frank maintained his watch. 40 years of protecting travelers, 2 years of inspiring veterans, a lifetime of proving that service never ends. Highway 9 Shell Station, defended by a 76-year-old Army Ranger who understood that some missions never truly end. Rangers lead the way, even when the way led to pumping gas and making coffee for strangers who needed safe passage through the night. Frank Turner, Staff Sergeant retired, gas station attendant active, still on patrol. The end.